Okay. Calling the order of the Abilene City Commission regular meeting for April 13th, 2020. First order of business is roll call.
This is City Clerk Penny Boca. Mayor Osterman.
Here.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
Commissioner Marshall. Here. Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Witt.
Here.
Roll call
Thank you, Penny. And next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder, please state your name prior to any information you would like to give us. First order of business is consent agenda. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Mayor, this is Jane Bolt, City Manager speaking.
Yes.
There was a request to add an item to the agenda for today's meeting.
Okay.
That would be item A.
What number was that again, please, Jane? This is Chris, for Mayor. 11A.
11A.
Okay.
There will be city employee pay during COVID-19. Aaron, does that fulfill the need for the addition to the agenda? You need to unmute. You're muted.
All right, you can hear me out? Yes, I believe that is sufficient. I apologize for that technological mishap.
All right.
Mayor, consent.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as amended.
It wouldn't be under consent agenda. It would be under old and new business, number 11A. Is that correct? We have to do.
Correct. Trevor?
Go ahead. This is Chris. Go ahead.
Trevor, we would be doing an addition and not an amendment.
Okay. So, Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the addition of item 11A on today's agenda.
Do I have a second?
Madam Mayor, this is Steve Marshall. I will second his motion.
All right. Any further discussion? I have a motion to make an addendum to the old and new business under 11A, city employees pay for COV 19-2020, and seconded. We will do a verbal vote. Mayor Osterman, yes. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
And Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
So it has been approved to add 11A to the old and new business. Next item up is consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
morning, sir. So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
This is Brandon Ryan. I will second.
Okay, this is Chris Mayer. It has been moved by Commissioner Schaefer and seconded by Commissioner Ryan to move to approve the consent agenda. Roll call, Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Commissioner Osterman. Yes, it has been approved. At this time, next item is public comments and communications. And we will ask if there's been any correspondence to the city clerk, Penny Soka.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is Penny Soka, and I have not received any public comments via email for this agenda.
Thank you, Penny. Next item for business is number 8, consider approval of the industrial land funding policy. City Manager Foltz.
Thanks, Mayor. This is Jane Foltz, City Manager. And this item was discussed at our March 16th, 2020 study session. And it had gone to the Planning Commission. And the recommendation was the Planning Commission unanimously recommended all changes be adopted by the City Commission at their next available meeting, and that is today.
Do I have any questions from the city commissioners in regards to the industrial land funding policy?
Madam Mayor, this is Commissioner Marshall. I read this thing over again, and my only problem is with the number of jobs we're requiring. 4 jobs at $20 an hour is only 166,000 some bucks. That's not very much money put into our community, provided that all of those 4 employees live in Abilene anyway. I would hope that we could get more jobs for this type of investment.
Commissioner, I would add, Commissioner Marshall, I would add that any jobs or businesses that would come in for this new land use policy would come before you as well. So you would have the opportunity to approve or disapprove of that business.
Commissioner Marshall again, so each case would come to us before it was approved? Am I understanding that right?
That is my understanding. Because that is,
This is Gary Martin. Section 4 of the policy speaks to each request will initially be reviewed by the Economic Development Corporation, followed by a recommendation for approval or disapproval by the City Commission.
Thank you, Aaron.
Any further this is Chris Osterman, Mayor. Is there any further discussion or questions? Do I have a motion to approve the industrial land funding policy?
This is City Commissioner Trevor Witt. I move that we approve this new industrial land funding policy as it appears in our agenda.
Do I have a second?
This is City Commissioner Brandon Ryan. I will second that.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the industrial land funding policy as stated in our agenda. All those For approval, Commissioner Marshall,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Mayor Osterman, yes, it has been so approved. Oh, Brandon, excuse me, Commissioner Witt?
Ryan.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize for that.
No problem.
It has been so approved. Next item, consider the southeast drainage work order between the City of Abilene and Olson's Associates. And then we would go to Mark Basham.
Thank you.
Waiting. Oh, he's back.
Okay, here we go. Thank you, Mark Daskamp with Olson, and what I'm going to do is talk through a couple of drawings or maps that was forwarded to you, I believe, last week. First of all, I just want to talk through these. The maps are from a study that was done in 2010 by GPA, and noted the deficiencies in the storm sewer that they laid out in that 2010 study. If you look at Figure 22, which is the basin southeast 3, and if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you can see, I hope it's printed in color, that you can see the orange that's designated in that upper left-hand corner, which shows the size of the southeast drainage area. Then if you look just at the overall bigger map, you can see everything that's highlighted in the lighter gray is everything north of the tracks, which includes downtown, and then basically from 14th Street to the north, and it essentially does go down clear to the southern limits of Abilene, from Buckeye to the east. So this is a very large drainage area. As you can see, and it's kind of hard to tell with this drawing, but if you see the big pluses, the big green pluses,
Yes.
that's on 5th Street. And you see some larger structures all come together on the east side of those pluses. That is really what is considered start of the bottleneck. And then it also goes to the south, where you have 1st Street, that was a new 1st Street with a new 48-inch pipe that ties into this 54. So you have a lot of newer sections that have almost the same pipe size as to what you're tying it, that's what there is existing, which is causing water to back up in your system, and you have all the stormwater system can't handle that. So it's been recognized, even since 2010 and way before that, that the 54-inch pipe that was installed in the 1940s is very inadequate in size. And I think everybody has seen that over the years. And that location has been found by Lon and his staff over the years because of actually the line collapsing. And so there's areas that we know where it's at, and there's areas that we don't, and we're just going to have to find where that's at. So our study is in the proposal that I gave you said to 1st Street. Actually, we should have said that we're going to go up to 4th and Brady. Because if you look at your pluses that on that drainage area, that's where that's really 4th and Brady, is where those pipes come together. And so that will be revised. Instead of just going to 1st Street, we need to go underneath both sets of tracks and include what it's going to take to take that water away from Brady and 4th Street. This report will different options. One, we're gonna look at the drainage area again, determine the pipe size requirement that's needed, and give recommendations to size of pipe and the cost associated with crossing underneath the railroad. And then also, once we get past the railroad and get into open field, we're going to look at, one, where replace where the pipe is located now. Two, look at an alternate alignment if there is one. And number three, we're going to look at making that across the field an open ditch. An open ditch can carry a lot more water and is less expensive than a pipe. So that's what I'm hoping that we can go with. You'll need more ground. We may have to look at alternate alignments in order to fit property lines and stuff like that. So what we want to do is have 3 cost estimates back to you with drawings with options 1, 2, and 3. So you can make a decision as to what's next. So why is this coming in front of you? I brought it up as with all items, or I guess how to say this. In times of crisis, there's always been a stimulus package following. They've either been in transportation, there's been water, there's been sewer, there has been all kinds of things that have come out in the past. We don't know what this is going to cost, the path it's going to take, and we don't know what that stimulus is going to say. All we're trying to do is to help you be better prepared to have something that can go to whatever agency that's going to be handling the stimulus when it comes out. That you have a project that we're down the road a little bit further than just we're 60 to 90 days and we're just getting started. So I want to try and get you a little better prepared. I'm not going to guarantee, I'm not going to say that you're going to get one. I would say this is the first step to allow you to know what your options are, and then we can look at applying for whatever and be ready as to which option needs to be chosen and move forward. So I'm going to stop there and just ask for any questions that you might have.
Madam Mayor, this is Commissioner Marshall. I have a question for Mark.
Yes.
Mark, is any of this reinventing the wheel? I mean, are we redoing any of the studies we've already done?
No, because it was never sized. It was never done in the study. It was determined that there was an issue, and it was never taken to the next level.
All right, thank you. I also have a question for City Administrator Jane. I know that the sewer fund, what kind of funds do we have there to work with?
This is Jane Foltz, City Manager. This would actually come out of the storm drain fund. We've been collecting funds for storm drainage. I think it's been for approximately 10 years. If my memory serves me well. I don't have that exact number in here. This recommendation is right at $20,000. After talking to Finance Director Marcus Rothschild, he assured me there are plenty of funds that we've already collected to start this process. We have to know what it's going to cost us before then we can move forward. And we don't know what that is, but that's what Mark's company is going to do for us, is to go to that next step. We know the GBA study was done well, but now it's time to find out next steps.
The project we just approved in the Northwest Division, how does that affect the money here?
Again, that was taken into consideration when this work order was reviewed by myself and Marcus.
Mark, this is Chris Osterman, Mayor. I have a question. Is those 3 choices that you are going to investigate, will they all have the same inlet, outlet locations?
What was the question?
wondered if each choices that they're going to give us options for, will they all have the same beginning inlet, same outlet? Or are you thinking of doing different varieties of changes?
It will probably have the same beginning point of fourth and break, because we have to collect the water at where it is now. So that will be the beginning point. The end point may be the same on 1 or 2, or it may all be different on all 3. It's my understanding, and that we don't know if there's easements filed on this. And that's just rumor mill, and that's something we have to research and find if there's easements recorded and where the location is from the 1940s. And if it's not, then we're gonna have to probably attend where the settlements have been to try and retrace where that location is. And the best we can, we gotta try and recreate it. Aaron, I'm gonna be looking at you for probably some help there. If we can't find it, if we don't know where it's at, we're probably gonna be creating a whole new alignment somehow and have to start over, probably on a location. I don't know. It's kind of hard to say when you're looking at a pipe that is not known where it's at.
Thank
So
you.
that was a long answer to your question, sorry.
No, thank you.
Mark, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, this is Lon. Kind of
Yes.
late getting to the meeting here, but I did get in. If you can hear me.
Yes.
And I don't know if you, okay. I've done some research over the years, and when we were doing repair works on the existing storm drain pipe that takes care of the southeast drainage, and I've never been able to, I have not found any recorded easements at all with any of that. So that would be something that will probably have to be done.
Thank you, Lon. This is Chris Osterman, Mayor. Do I have any further questions? I do want to make go ahead.
Madam Mayor, this is City Commissioner Trevor Witt. Not so much a question, but more of a comment of clarification on why we're looking at this for a priority, at least from where I see things, is the fact that this study is this drainage pipe affects such a large area of town. Looks like more than a quarter of the town this drainage is kind of affected by this drainage pipe, and hopefully we get down the line where we're able to fix this, and it would help be the first step to solving quite a few problems in those areas. And then, as a note of finding this, I took a look, and actually on Google Earth's free satellite imagery is updated from where the latest image is from June of last year when we had all that rain. And you can actually see a pretty defined line of where they're expecting this drainage pipe to be. And a large portion of it crosses through one property owner. So that'll be an interesting part of it. And that field was probably halfway flooded. So any work we do to help alleviate this drainage I'm guessing will probably even help the property owner. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Trevor.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall again, just to kind of echo what Chris said, what Trevor said, and that too, that we had discussed our water issues, our draining plan, and I see this as the next step in our plan that we have to stick to. And like Trevor said, this is such a huge portion of our city, and it gets our downtown area. It just protects our plan. Second step.
Thank you. Do I have any further? Yes.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is Lon again. I did want to point out that you're right about that, the size of this particular drainage area. If I remember, the GBA study showed, I think it was over 600 acres, or roughly 600 acres that drains into this part of this basin. So it makes up the biggest area of all of our drainage facilities.
Thank you, Lon. Any further questions? Comments?
Madam Mayor, Commissioner Marshall, I move that we consider the Southeast Drainage Work Order between the city of Abilene and Olson Associates.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Schaefer, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to consider the Southeast Drainage Work Order between the City of Abilene and Olson Associates. Any further discussion? If not, we will go to vote. Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Mayor Osterman, yes. Commissioner Ryan,
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
It has been so approved. Next item, consider an agreement between the City of Abilene and Rawhide Portable Corral, Inc. for a temporary access easement to the recycle center during 8th Street construction. City Manager Jane?
Thank you, Mayor. This is Jane Foltz, City Manager. And this agreement between Rawhide Portable Corral and the City of Abilene was to access temporary easement into the recycling center as this construction project progressed. Now, the city, OCCK has closed the recycling center during this COVID emergency, but it may reopen. And so Lon worked with the property owners of Rawhide Corral, and we have an agreement for a temporary access to the recycling center through their property.
Thank you, Jane. This is Chris Osterman, Mayor. Do I have any comments or discussion regarding this agreement? If not, do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the agreement between the City of Abilene and Rawhide Portable Corral, Inc. For temporary access easement to the recycling center during the 8th Street construction.
Commissioner Marshall, I will second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and second to approve the agreement between the City of Abilene and Rawhide Portable Corral, Inc. for temporary access easement to the recycling center during the time of the 8th Street construction. Any further discussion? We will go to roll call vote. For those approving, Mayor Witt. I'm sorry, Commissioner Witt.
Madam Mayor, quite yet. Yes.
Mayor Osterman, yes. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
It has been so approved. Next item, consider the bids for street and parking lot improvements of the amount of $149,689.50. I will go to Jane, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is Jane Foltz, City Manager. And as you see in your memo, we received 2 bids. Lon did give an estimate of $223,890. We were very fortunate to receive 2 bids, and the low bid came in from Bear Construction for $689,050. $689.50. With the federal fund exchange dollars that we received actually February 20th, that was $128,717.03. That will pay for 85% of this project. And as many of you may remember, if we do not do a street project, we don't get those federal fund exchange dollars. So we're doing 2 things here. We've got a really super bid coming in at 30% less than what the estimate was. And we're also getting our federal fund exchange dollars put to good use so that we will be in line for those for next year. So with an 85% payment through federal fund exchange, the other 15% coming from special streets, I think this is a great project to do at this time. And if Lon's on the line, he can add anything else that he would like to, but I think it's pretty easy move.
Thank you, Jane. Is Lon available?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any comments to make on this, Lon, or do I have any questions for Mr. Schrader?
Not hearing any questions. This is Lon, Public Works Director. But yeah, I wanted to point out that we were pretty conservative this year because we have a couple of pretty large projects looming ahead of us for the next couple of years. So this is something that felt like we could squeeze in here, and so we kept a pretty small scale project in mind this year anyway. And then of course those guys coming in, most of that cost savings over my estimate was just the cost of the materials. So I think we're getting a pretty good deal there.
Thank you, Lon. Do I have a motion to approve that bid?
Madam Mayor, Commissioner Marshall, I think this is an excellent time to do this project since the majority of it's paid for and the price is so low.
Yes.
So I move we do it.
All right. Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner
It's been moved and second to approve the bid for the street and parking lot improvements in the amount of $149,689.50. Is there any further? Okay, now I'll go to a roll call vote. Mayor Osterman, yes. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
And Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
It has been a 5-0 approval vote. Next item, 11A, city employees pay for COV 19-2020. Jane Foltz, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Jane Foltz, City Manager. And Penny and I did have a conversation with our City Attorney, Aaron Martin. And so he's going to give you a little bit of update and thoughts.
Thank you, Jane. This is Aaron Martin, City Attorney. As Ms. Foltz mentioned, we spoke in anticipation of this potential discussion, and we can certainly take it wherever you would like to go, but I offered to provide a general overview of some new laws at the federal level that may affect the city related to the COVID-19 personnel matters, and relate those to the current status of certain city employees or groups of city employees so that you can have a further discussion about how you would like to proceed. Last month, in late March, the United States Congress passed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act that has an effective date of April 1st, 2020. And that act has two components related to potential paid leave that may be required to be offered to city employees, as well as a number of other employees throughout the country. But I'm just going to speak to how those laws relate to the city employees. The two components are the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, which expands the requirements and imposes requirements for offering paid leave to certain employees who leave for certain reasons. And there's also the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. And I will speak to both of those now, starting with the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. What this does is it provides employees with up to 80 hours of paid leave, subject to certain fractional and dollar caps. To the extent that the employee is unable to work due to one of 6 enumerated reasons. I'll speak to each of those 6 reasons briefly, but the first one is if an employee is subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order and is unable to come to work. If that happens, again, the employee may be entitled to paid leave if they're unable to be at work. The second one is the employee has been advised by a physician or a healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to concerns related to COVID-19. The third reason is if the employee is experiencing symptoms of COVID-19 and seeking a medical diagnosis. Fourth, the employee is caring for an individual who is stuck at home under a quarantine or isolation order, or the employee is caring for someone who has been advised to self-quarantine by a healthcare provider. The next condition that would qualify an employee would be if the employee, I apologize, I had a pop-up. The employee is caring for a son or daughter if the school or place of care for their son or daughter is shut down due to COVID-19 reasons. Those conditions, if present, entitle that employee to 2 weeks of paid time off. Again, subject to dollar caps that can be up to $511 per day or $5,000 total. And this relates to any leave of absence between April 1st and December 31st of 2020 that arises from any of those conditions. The applicability of those conditions to any particular city employee has to be determined on a case-by-case basis. It is not possible for me or Ms. Foltz or anyone for that matter to address how those conditions would apply to any particular city employee, because it really has to be a fact-specific inquiry. The other component of the new federal law, as I mentioned at the outset, is the Emergency FMLA, or Family Medical Leave Act, paid leave. And this arises in the limited circumstance of where an employee is unable to work or telework due to the need for them to care for a child because of a school or child care closure or unavailability. In the event that an employee qualifies for that paid leave, they are entitled to 10 weeks of paid leave, again, subject to dollar caps and fractional limits on that pay. And again, any particular employee's entitlement to that paid leave is a fact-specific inquiry as to why they are unable to come to work. As we apply those to city employees, it's worth noting that we have not had to do that yet. Pursuant to previous discussions, I believe, at the city commission level, Ms. Foltz has made decisions regarding who is essential and who is not essential over the last 3 weeks for purposes of coming into work. And I will have to let her speak to how that has been implemented practically, but I understand it has been happening. And depending on which employee or class of employees we are talking about, they have been coming in some or some not at all. But the current status of the paid leave is that all of those employees have continued to be paid in the ordinary course. And it has not been necessary for any of those employees to seek benefits under either of those new federal laws because they have been paid by the city for the last 3 weeks or however long it has been since they have not been coming to work full time. In terms of the city's discretion to continue with the status quo, we have a large amount of discretion. You can certainly, on one end of the spectrum, continue to pay all of those employees in the ordinary course, regardless of whether they are coming in or regardless of how much they are working. Or on the other end of the spectrum, you could stop that practice altogether and enable those employees to continue using vacation pay or sick leave if that were authorized to the extent they're not coming in and working or if they are unable to work remotely. Once the status quo changes and employees are no longer just automatically paid regardless of the level of work being performed, I would expect that the city will then be fielding requests to receive one or both of those paid leave statuses that I spoke of earlier that are made available by federal law. But again, we have not had to do that yet because employees have continued to be paid and it has simply not been necessary. So we do have a wide degree of latitude in terms of how the city handles employee pay during this period, subject to any employee who qualifies for either of those paid leaves will need to be allowed that when the circumstances present themselves. So with that, I'll pause and happy to answer any questions or expand on anything that I just spoke about.
Aaron, this is Chris Osterman, Mayor. I just want to make this clear because for everyone that what you are saying is this is the new Emergency Federal FMLA Act. Those who are actually in the process of having a connection to the COV-19. The second item is that we have employees that are staying home that have no reason to apply for that emergency FMLA, but there is no work available for them here, so they are staying home. That is two different identifying of this. Am I right on that, or?
Yes, I believe you are. This is Aaron Martin, City Attorney again. So I think the circumstances you described relate really to whether an employee qualifies for the emergency paid sick leave under the new federal law. And as I spoke of earlier, that's 2 weeks of paid leave if you qualify for it. And I spoke of those 6 conditions that would bring you within the scope of that. I won't repeat all of those, but I think the one that's most likely at issue in terms of what you just described is the one way to qualify would be to demonstrate that you are subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order. And that condition has been the subject of a lot of interpretation and discussion since the new laws came out. And where I believe it has come down is that in order to take leave for that reason and get paid for it, the local quarantine or isolation order must make the employee unable to work, even though his or her employer actually has work to perform, but for the isolation or quarantine order. So if as a result of a quarantine or isolation order, the employer actually has no work for the employee to perform, then that employee does not qualify for paid sick leave. I'll give you a couple of examples here. If we take the example of a city employee that lives in, I'm going to use Johnson County as an example. If we have a city employee that hypothetically lives in Johnson County and commuted to Abilene every day, and because of the nature of their job was unable to work remotely, we know that, at least I believe we know, that there is a directive that if you visit Johnson County, you need to quarantine for 14 days. Or I'm going to assume that for this example. Well, in that case, every time an employee came to and from Abilene, Johnson County, they would be required to quarantine for 14 days. So in that example, it would be literally impossible for them to come to work every day, because every time they came to and from Johnson County, they would have to quarantine themselves for 14 days. That is an example of where the city may actually have work to perform if they were able to come, but because of some other applicable law or order, they're unable to come and perform their work. In that case, they would be entitled to paid sick leave. However, if an employee simply didn't come to work because there was no work for them to perform, that is not a sufficient reason to make a claim for paid sick leave. I don't want to pick on any particular function or service, so I'll use kind of an example of if we had a recreational facility that was owned by the city of Abilene, and we had numerous employees that worked at that recreational facility, but chose to close it down indefinitely during this pandemic. Those employees would not actually have any work to perform in their normal sense, because where they would go to work is closed down. And so in that case, I don't believe those employees would qualify for paid sick leave or be entitled to it. It really boils down to, but for some other directive or order at the federal, state, or local level, they cannot come to work and perform the work that's waiting for them. So that answers your question.
Well, thank you, Aaron. But my question is, and this is what I have a hard time working through, is that we do have some employees that are at home. They do not qualify for the emergency FMLA, but they're still getting paid regular pay, from what I understand. Just for your information, FYI, the library is an example. They shut down. That's one case. How can we continue to pay someone to stay at home and yet the same pay or similar pay to another employee that's working? That makes it not a same fair labor. That to me doesn't add up. So that's what I would like an answer to. How are we going to move forward with this? And when I'm uncomfortable paying someone in two different ways, I think that should be identified.
This is Aaron Martin, city attorney again. I think it is definitely appropriate to have that policy discussion regarding how you wish to proceed. It is always an option, and this is not a comment on whether you should or should not, it is always an option to go above and beyond the minimum federal requirements. And presently that is what the city is doing. Because if back and said, we're not going to pay people who are at home and not working, and we are only going to pay them if they qualify for the federal paid leave. That is certainly something you can do, and many cities are transitioning to doing at this point. As it currently stands, I believe that when the decision was made in late March to designate essential and non-essential, no decision was made at that time to affect pay, but I will look to Ms. Fultz here as to whether she has a longer-term plan or a shorter-term plan, or however you wish to describe it, to transition from the current model, which again goes above and beyond what is required, because we are paying people who wouldn't necessarily have a legal entitlement to it. And as far as the equality perspective, that is certainly there. I think everyone's trying to make the best legal judgments as to how to accommodate these unique circumstances. And I think right now, we're in a good position legally, but over time, as more guidance comes down, I think you want to be in a position to be as equal and fair as possible as we administer these unique and new personnel policies. This circumstance is not addressed in the personnel manual, we confirm that. And so we have a wide degree of latitude as to how we proceed, whether that decision is made today or in the future.
Mayor Osman, before we hear from Jane, I would like to speak to the attorney if that's possible.
Yes, Commissioner Marshall.
Commissioner Marshall? Yes, Aaron, we certainly have covered the first 10 days by the 3 weeks we've already paid them, and I take the mayor's comments about this inequality happening because that could lead to discontent. But my main thing is I'm reading that cities do not qualify for the 50, under 50 or over 500. How does that translate?
Let me make sure I understand your question. The federal law has certain, it has exemptions for employers with more than 500 employees, I believe. And I take it you may be farther ahead than I am in terms of the under 50 exemption. I'll answer your question by saying that I don't believe the city is exempt from complying with the paid leave requirement that we offer it. So I don't believe we're exempt. There are exemptions. And as we get down to the individual employee level, there are exemptions for employees who provide health care, such as EMS workers. So we would not be required to provide paid sick leave to those employees who qualify for that. But I'm not aware of any broader exemption that would preclude the city from having to comply with the requirements that I described. I would have to take another look and spend a little more time to answer your question as to the 50 and 500 thresholds. And I apologize, I'm not prepared to do that right now.
Go ahead.
I think you answered the question, but us sending them home does not make them qualify for the leave, correct?
That is correct. The city manager's directive that a particular employee is non-essential and should simply go home until further notice does not qualify an employee for paid sick leave, emergency paid sick leave.
Thank you.
Can I, this is Chris Osterman, Mayor, can I address what Commissioner Marshall was talking about, the under 50 employees and the over the 500 employees? From what I'm remembering, the FMLA regularly identifies with that you can claim FMLA if you have over 50 employees. So what she's referring to, I think, and I may be wrong, is that this is the regular FMLA that they are referring to. Do I have any further? Go ahead.
Yes, Commissioner Marshall again. Actually, I'm reading the COVID-19 Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act. And there's a whole bunch of questions like who's the healthcare provider and that sort of thing. But one of the questions was, do cities qualify for the under 50 employee or over 500 employee business exemption? And I just wanted some clarification on that if Aaron had it.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I totally agree.
This is Aaron Martin, city attorney. I looked at my materials in front of me and did confirm that employers with over 500 employees are exempt from the requirements. I'm assuming, perhaps dangerously, that we fall somewhere between 50 and 500 employees at the city of Abilene. Am I correct, Jane, that we don't fall under 50?
We have 61 employees.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Chris Osterman, Mayor. I would like to hear from other commissioners or their thoughts if we want to continue this process, or do we want to make changes to that process?
Madam Mayor, Commissioner Marshall, again, I think we really need to look at this. We cannot indefinitely pay someone full pay for staying home and having people come in and getting paid. I think we need to have a plan. They can file for unemployment if need be, but there are guidelines we can pay them up to 2/3 too.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, this is Trevor Witt, City Commissioner. One of the things I was wondering in this is required sick leave and family leave. Those components, Aaron, this question for you is those would be paid out of city funds. There's no federal reimbursement associated with those requirements.
Not for cities. There is not a federal reimbursement. That would be out of the city's funds.
Thank you. So yeah, what I think what would be good for us to do is kind of map out based upon our current status and seeing that the situation continues into maybe a couple different scenarios of saying we get over this stay-at-home stuff in August, or maybe not till the end of the year, and kind of have some associated not only financial projections, like Jane was talking about our last meeting about our expectations for sales tax revenue to be down, but so we'll be looking at which employees would be affected in this, because if we make any decision where we're gonna reduce pay or temporary stop some of these positions, we need to be really mindful and strategic about that, so that those people that are affected are able to plan and are able to see it coming ahead of them. So I think definitely having Jane and the rest of the team start developing that game plan is certainly needed.
Commissioner Marshall, again, I think Commissioner Witt is right on target. We need to have a plan, and part of that study, I would like to know what our unemployment rate is, what we're paying right now. I have a feeling nobody's going to be dinged on their unemployment payments, just like, these payments are subject to FICA for the employer. I think there's going to be some concessions there. I don't think this is going to hurt our unemployment rating if we have to put people on unemployment. So I think we really need to study this a little bit and see where we are going to go, because we're already
3 weeks past.
This is Commissioner Ryan. It really is just an agreement. I think in the short term we're good for now. This very well could end in 2 to 3 weeks, and all of this planning will be for nothing. But I do think long term, if it comes to that, we do need to have some sort of guidelines that we can follow as well, and that way the employees kind of have an idea as well. It's completely out of our control. We have no control over these things. So I just wanted to echo that I agree with both Commissioner Witt and Marshall that long term we do need to start developing a plan, even though it may never come to fruition, we may never need it, but at least we have it.
This is Mayor Osterman. Can I ask Aaron a question? If I did I read this correctly, that if we do furlough and we put someone on unemployment, during this process, they get an additional $600 a week because of the COV-19? Is that correct?
That is correct. That is a separate federal law that entitles anyone who qualifies for state unemployment benefits to receive a supplemental $600 in addition to whatever state unemployment benefits they would receive. And that, I believe that extra $600 unemployment benefit is good through the end of July of 2020.
Thank you. And this
I
is,
would note that under state law, the maximum unemployment benefits that any individual can receive is $488 a week. So that extra $600 is a sizable amount relative to what an individual would otherwise be receiving based solely on state unemployment law.
okay, thank you. And I also,
Marshall, again, that's
go ahead. Commissioner
Madam
Marshall?
Mayor?
Yes.
I think you brought up a great point. We could potentially have people making more money at home if we don't pay them than if we do pay them, but this could be part of what we discuss and plan, how we're going to go forward in these next couple of months.
Yes. Thank you. And this is Chris Osterman, Mayor. I totally agree. We need to consider our employees, but we also need to make some good decisions on moving forward. So, if with that said, City Manager Jane Foltz, from what I'm hearing from the other city commissioners, that there will be a plan of action for this?
Thank you, Mayor. So, funny you should mention that. I have met with department heads last week, and we have had a discussion about who we need and who might be furloughed. We haven't made any we haven't planned any details of that, but I asked the leadership team to please go back and think about who we could and could not live without for a time period. Again, I think most people would be back here working if we were not on a stay-at-home order from the governor. We worked, I visited with Public Works Director. We're looking at keeping, and we will have this conversation with all department heads, continuing that social distancing within the workplace, doing some shift changes where we have so many people come in at 7:30, so many at 7 o'clock, 7:30, and 8 o'clock to keep them separated. We have enough vehicles for those people who are out working the streets and water to make sure that we don't have a closer than 6 foot opportunity with our employees. We know here at the city offices, we really feel that we can bring people back to work and still have our social distancing plus meet our 6 foot parameter. There are things for our employees to do, but we had a stay-at-home order, and that's why they are at home. Many of them are ready to come back to work. I think as you talk about furloughs, Penny and I have had this discussion. We would probably ask for volunteers first as we move forward, and we don't know when this is going to end. So I think what you're talking about is what the leadership team of department heads have been having that discussion about who and what and how is this going to work.
Thank you. So the next meeting, we will have some plan of action or any identifying that you can help us through this, because we would have to change the employee manual. Is that correct?
I think, as Aaron and I talked this morning, this is City Manager Jane Foltz. As Aaron and I talked this morning, we may add something to the employee policies and procedures that has to do with an emergency situation. We've never had this. We may never have this again, but I think it's important that there is something in the policy, and I think many cities are looking at how to handle an emergency such as this. This is just unprecedented. So we're all learning as we move forward, and of course looking out for the best interest of not only the city of Abilene, but our employees. Because once we furlough, if someone wants to go get another job, that is their prerogative. They've been furloughed, laid off. I don't know that we could afford to replace a number of people, but you know, only time tells. So yes, we're looking at all those things.
Okay, thank you.
And we can't keep paying people to stay home, and that's what we're doing right now. We have work to do, and we need to get back to work.
Commissioner Marshall again, Jane, I think that's very helpful, but it would help us if we knew the plan. You know, we're just sitting here wondering what's going on, and I think it'd help us a great deal if we were privy to the plans. Not that we're going to hire and fire people, but we just kind of like to be in the loop. At least I would.
I agree with that, Commissioner Marshall. This is Chris Osterman, Mayor.
This is City Commissioner Trevor Witt. So it sounds like what would be good is as our meetings move forward, just have a reoccurring meeting item talking about the current state of city employees and the plan associated with if we continue our current policy or when we need to make an adjustment to that, so that we just have that on our agenda item to discuss, and Jane can give us updates on the plan as time goes on until we're over this pandemic. So
That can happen.
This is Aaron Martin, City Attorney. I think hopefully this is a fair question, but just to equip myself as I tell Jane what she can and cannot do, and she sorts through that as well. Is that, just to clarify, is that something, to the extent that the status quo has changed, is that something that I'm now hearing the City Commission wishes to be collectively involved in prior to any change, or is that simply in continuing with Ms. Foltz's delegated decision-making authority and simply updating along the way? And I don't mean to suggest there's a right answer, but I think it would be helpful to clarify what authority the City Commission collectively wishes to give Jane in that regard, so that she can act appropriately, and I can make sure that we're not acting inconsistently.
Mayor Elston, Commissioner Marshall again.
Yes.
I would think if at our regular meetings she was reporting to us, I don't think anything so drastic is going to happen that she's going to have to let us know ahead of time that she brought somebody back to work or she sent somebody home. I just think the updates, like Trevor said, and make it an agenda item every time, but maybe that would be sufficient.
Well, this is Chris Osterman, Mayor. If they're going to do addendum to the policies and procedures manual, yes, we should be in the loop because we approved the original changes to the policies, employees' policies and procedures. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Mayor Osterman, this is Gabriel.
Yes.
I would let you know that we will not change the employee's policies and procedure manual without your approval.
Okay. All right. All right. Any further discussion? Next item, discussion regarding meeting format using the go-to meeting. City Manager Jane Foltz.
So I want to know how you think this went, and I I think this is a good format to keep everybody distant and well. So I would like to hear your thoughts.
This is City Commissioner Trevor Witt. I think this meeting went pretty well, and it seems like everybody even has pretty good mute discipline already. When talking on the microphone, it's actually kind of nice because you know when somebody's about to start talking. So yeah, I think this is working great.
Mr. Marshall, I will echo that. This format works well. We can see each other. We're getting business done, and we're staying safe.
This is Commissioner Ryan, I agree. I think it's only up from here. I think we'll get more used to this, and maybe we're coming back and actually seeing everyone in person, so we might actually enjoy this more.
This is Schaefer. I wish we had better bandwidth. You're breaking up on audio quite frequently. Pictures are fine, but I have a notification here, slow network connection, and everyone's on the internet. I just don't think there's as much bandwidth coming into town as we need, but the format's fine.
This is Chris Osterman, Mayor. I agree. This process is a great alternative for social distancing, and I think it works well. So
Jane Foltz, City Manager, I would suggest that we do our study sessions on Mondays and our City Commission meetings Mondays with this format. We'll continue to be at 4 o'clock if that works for everyone, and we will continue to get business accomplished.
thank you. Next item, City Manager reports. Jane Foltz, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a report from all the department heads just to send out to you that it's fairly lengthy, so I won't bother you with it now, but I will email it to you at the end of this meeting. I asked all department heads to give me their top 3 priorities that are being accomplished while we are on this COVID emergency. And so you will see that. And the last thing that I have is, again, meeting with the department heads and talking about how to proceed with this COVID-19 pandemic and how we can think outside the box, continue to have our employees come to work without running into each other. It's making department heads work a little differently as far as organization, keeping the staff safe and healthy, and getting most of the people back to work. My goal is Monday, because we have work to do, and I think we are on work day 14, and we've got our setup here. We're all very separated, 6 feet from each other. We're still using sanitizing measures in and out of the building, but it's time for people to get back to work. There's Penny with her Lysol wipes. And again, we don't want to hold the city back during this pandemic.
Thank you. Next item is adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn the April 13th, 2020?
I ask a quick question first, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall. Jane, do we have masks if any employee asks for them?
We do not.
Okay, thank you. In that case, Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Ryan, I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and second to adjourn the April 13, 2020 City Commission meeting. Roll call vote. Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Commissioner Osterman. Yes. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes.
Commissioner Marshall.
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
So adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Can you all smile real quick for a picture? Perfect. Thank you.
Can I get shut up? How many people did we have on there?
Hold on.
So most of us all was 17.
17? Well, we're not.
That's a lot.
Towards the end, there was about 14.